Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about my book, Manijeh, Not Only a Change of Name, which is my mom's story. What inspired me to write this book is that all my life, I've been fascinated by people and their stories. And I also think, like Grant, that the best stories are the true stories. Some of you may already know that my mom and I were parted for nearly 23 years. When my first child was born, I needed my mom by my side. I'm sorry. When my second child was born, I wanted my mom. When my third child was born, I started dreaming about my mom because I thought she was not going to make it. Anyway, after 23 years of trying, eventually she managed to get her passport and a visa to come to Australia. By then, she had so much to tell, so many stories to share, that I thought I must write them down, at least for my family. So my mom inspired me to write this book, which is my first book. And what challenges did I face? As you can already see, I was quite challenged when I faced writing it. It was very close to my heart, and I was emotionally overwhelmed. It was very overwhelming. So, like now, for nearly 6 months, on and off, we cried together. We cried for my father, for my family, for the Baha'i community. It was just amazing. And what sacrifices did I make? I know I was working for the Human Rights Office at the time, full-time. I was the chair of the Consultative Council of the Chief Minister, Kate Connell. I was on the Assembly, Local Spiritual Assembly of Canberra. I was a member of Education Committee. I was a wife, a mother, a daughter-in-law, a sister, a friend, a member of the community. Yet for all the sacrifices my mom did, I owed it to her to bring her story into life. She spoke Farsi, and I wrote in English. But what did I learn in the process? I felt very honored that I was the only child who did this. I could do this. I mean, I'm not the only child, I'm one of 9. But I was given an opportunity to learn about the House of the Bab, the way it was acquired, the demolition of the Bab. That's where I was born, that's where I grew up. That's my childhood home. I learned about the revolution, the Islamic revolution of Iran, and its impact on my family, my friends, and the Baha'i community. And I learned a lot about myself. I realized that I loved to hear the stories of different people, but needed to develop my capacity as a neutral, non-judgmental child, person, and writer. And I learned that there is nothing more fulfilling than bearing witness to the story of an unsung hero and telling the story of those who are unable to tell their own. And I also learned to believe that difficult roads often lead to beautiful destinations. And I'm very grateful that we are all here in Australia. What is my favorite part of the book? I mean, there are many parts of the book that I really like, but my favorite part is our love story. Because my husband, who is sitting over there, doesn't think that's exactly what happened. But unfortunately, there is nothing he can do about it. It's published. So I guess he has to write his own book. There are several parts of the book that make me laugh, but there is one part that makes me laugh for several minutes, and I'd like to share that with you. That's called Parvi's story, if you happen to get the book. Parvi was called into the office of the Ministry of Islamic Republic of Iran to fill out a statutory declaration stating his promise not to ever sack anyone from the Baha'i community. Parvi was quite surprised because the Baha'i community is not a business and he wasn't in charge of hire and fire. Apparently, a Baha'i had lost her administrative right over breaking a Baha'i law after several warnings, and she had decided at the end to resign anyway. But then she was caught by the authorities over breaking a government law and subsequently arrested. The authorities took her to the radio station for show and tell. They would do that often to put down the Baha'i community and scare people off contacting the Baha'is. She was introduced on the radio as a Baha'i woman caught in action breaking the Islamic law. The woman said she was no longer a Baha'i, but the interviewer wouldn't have a bar of it, and the interviewer said she was born as a Baha'i and would die as a Baha'i. The woman said she was born into a Baha'i family, but she broke the Baha'i law and lost her right. So the interviewer said, "Who took your right?" And the woman said, "Parvi's." So Parvi's happened to be my brother-in-law, serving as a member of Yaran for that region at that time. I need a tissue. Could I please have a tissue? So subsequent to that, my brother-in-law was arrested and taken to the police station. They made him promise and sign a statement not to ever kick anyone out of the Baha'i faith until further notice. Thank you. No matter how badly Baha'is behaved, and no matter what many principles they compromised, poor Parvi had to write a statement promising not to kick anyone out of the Baha'i faith, signed and dated. Okay, who and what did I dislike in the book? The part I disliked is the sad truth about the cruelty of a government to the Baha'i community, I guess, and the destruction of the house of the Bab, which was where I grew up. The torture, imprisonment, killing of many, many staunch, steadfast, and beautiful Baha'is, such as my father, Mona, Azadi, Wahdat, Eshraqi, Mehdizadeh, Hooshmand, and many, many more. I'm sure you know. Who is my favorite character in the book? Naturally, my mom. She's my favorite character in the book. Having a genuinely funny mom is one of life's simplest pleasure. She's just amazing. She's nearly 90 years old, and to this day, she's quite funny. Like the other day, when I had the fall, I hurt myself. So I was pointing to my hand with my index finger, saying that everywhere I touch, it hurts. And my mom looks at my finger, and I could read her mind. I think she was thinking that my finger is broken. No, I'm not. I'm thinking, God, you're so funny. And what people are asking me these days. These days, I have a community of people who have read the first book, touched by my mom's true story, and they want more. So I'm writing them another book. I share with you a glimpse of the second book, and then I'm going to ask Sylvia to come and help me with reading two of the comments made by different people on the website. My second book is about a young woman. This is just a section of it. Our love story started long before he and I ever actually met. When I think about it, my love story, like many other love stories, did not start by two people meeting up in a party, pub, or a cafe. It was merely glancing at each other for a year on the way or back from high school, or during the Islamic religious ceremonies like Shab Ashura or Shab Tasu'a when Imam Hussein was martyred. In this innocent relationship, like Romeo and Juliet, we wrote letters to each other for nearly 2 years. And then we talked to each other on the phone for months. Every moment leading up to the one in which I met him for breakfast by the beach for the first time. The day I thought I would die if I was caught by authorities or even our parents. That brief meeting on that glorious morning somehow shaped me and prepared me to be the person I am today. The whole story of a pretty young girl meets a handsome boy on a nice sunny day. Boy and girl fall in love. Boy proposes or on a romantic day and the girl says yes and they get married model was way too simplistic in my part of the world. In addition, I needed to know what being in love with the wrong person feels like before I could ever really know when being with the right one is. Sylvia, from here.
The first comment published on Amazon is from Elaine Gulliman. A touching story of courage and hope. History is replete with events of human beings doing frightful things to each other. The frequency of cruelty can be so overwhelming that we often become desensitized in an attempt to shut out the world's torments. Manijeh's story restores our sensitivity in a way that both opens our eyes to the injustices of the world and invigorates us to experience the power of the human spirit. In this personal story, we follow the life of Manijeh Sachi from childhood to her present age. Manijeh is outcast as a girl for having the fortitude and will to independently investigate matters of faith in a highly traditional and intolerant milieu. She and her family are persecuted and criminalized for decades for simply adhering to a different faith. In the crucible of these hardships, character is tested, will is fortified, and fates are determined. For a glimpse into a life that may very well inspire you to live yours more fully, Manijeh is a highly recommended book to read. And the next one. A contemporary story that offers us a description of what it means not to be seen as a legal citizen under the law because of religious beliefs. In the US and the West generally, we watch for more subtle signs of discrimination. But in Iran, the situation is constant since the Bab and then Baha'u'llah revealed a new world destiny to take humanity into a unified, peaceful future. Many of us in the West think of religious persecution in a detached sort of way. But Manijeh's story offers us a personal encounter of what it looks like today. From the destruction and seizure of private property without any warning, to hidden audio taping surveillance equipment, to destruction of cemeteries and torture. Several times I had to put the book down because I was overwhelmed by the volatility of the situations. Thankfully, many of us who will read this book have not been subjected to religious persecution, but reading Manijeh made me aware of the persistent need for vigilance to protect everyone's right to practice or not practice their faith. Her story brings it all to life in our times. Anyone interested in human rights should read this book for a glimpse of what religious persecution looks like today, well told without being overstated, incredibly moving.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, friends.